Gospel reading today comes from John chapter 2. On the third day there was a wedding in Cana of Galilee. The mother of Jesus was there. Jesus and his disciples had also been invited to the wedding. When the wine gave out, the mother of Jesus said to him, "They have no wine." And Jesus said to her, "Woman, what concern is that to you and to me? My hour has not yet come." His mother said to the servants, "Do whatever he tells you." Now standing there were 6 stone water jars for the Jewish rites of purification, each holding 20 or 30 gallons. Jesus said to them, "Fill the jars with water," and they filled them to the brim. He said to them, "Now draw some out and take it to the chief steward." So they took it. When the steward tasted the water that had become wine and did not know where it came from, though the servants who had drawn the water knew, the steward called the bridegroom and said to him, "Everyone serves the good wine first, and then the inferior wine after the guests have become drunk. But you have kept the good wine until now." Jesus did this, the first of his signs in Cana of Galilee, and revealed his glory, and his disciples believed in him. Vancouver is probably the most secular city in all of North America. Church attendance is very low. Even the number of churches is fairly low. But the churches that are there seem to do a really good job at living out Jesus' message, living out the gospel and God's mission. In fact, one of them, 10th Church, led by Pastor Ken Shigematsu, who is just by coincidence Japanese American, they found a number of problems within the city and started creating programs to help the homeless and different people. And one day, on a particularly cold day, Ken came to church to unlock and get ready for church, and he found a homeless man who had froze to death on the front steps of the church. And so he decided to himself and talk to the congregation. They decided that they were going to start this program called Out of the Cold. It was going to take property within the city that wasn't being used and create shelters and places to live for the homeless. But see, the city government of Vancouver thought they'd look bad if the church did this because they weren't doing a whole lot about the homeless problem. And so they created these permits that were very difficult to get. But nonetheless, the church applied and they got their permit and they started to build the program, when ironically, other churches came to them and said, "Stop, you can't do this. You're going to make us look bad. We don't have the resources that you do. We don't have the wherewithal to get through the permit process, and certainly we don't have the money to buy these buildings and to reclaim these urban areas. So just stop." Other churches were telling them that they needed to stop helping the homeless because it would make them look bad. Why? What was the matter? I guess there were a couple of possibilities. One could be that, hey, it's not our problem. Other possibility could be that they had a lack of courage. Maybe they were afraid to fail. Who knows? Well, let's go with option 1 for a moment. Let's assume that they said, "It's not my problem." Jesus said that at Cana. Right? When the wine ran out, he's like, "It's their fault. They should have prepared better for this wedding. They knew there were going to be a lot of people here. Why didn't they have enough wine? The heck with them for not preparing wisely enough." And sometimes we say the same about the homeless, right? How come they didn't go out and get a good education and get a good job so that they wouldn't end up in this position? It's their own fault. Let them suffer. What does it have to do with me? And Jesus, in essence, says the same thing. He says to his own mom, "Woman, what does this have to do with me? This isn't my time yet. It's not my rodeo." But, despite saying that, good old Mary says, "Yeah, right, I know you're going to do something. Okay, do whatever he says." Sure enough, he gets the 6 big 30-gallon jars that were used for the purification ritual. Right? Jews would wash their hands in a special purification process before they ate. And with that many people, there had to be really big jars so that everybody would have enough water to pour it out and to wash their hands. Well, good old John, with his theological stuff always going on, always something going on in the background. Here to us it looks like a simple wedding. Here it looks like a foolish bride and groom who didn't plan well enough for their party, but really John is telling us something much deeper. Telling us not only in a way of foreshadowing about the bridegroom, and the Messianic feast, and all these things that we see throughout John, right? The big dinner in heaven when everybody gets to come to the table. That's one aspect of it. But there's also the aspect that serving other people is somehow sacramental. Right? He used these specific jars that were used for the purification process, and he turned them into wine. This is my blood given for you. I will do whatever it takes, no matter what it costs me, to provide for you, even when it seems like something as inconsequential as providing wine for your party. This I give of myself for you. Jesus shows us the sacramental qualities of giving for others. But then there's the other possibility. What if it was fear or a lack of courage? Just the thought that perhaps they could fail, and so these churches said, hey, don't make us look bad, because if you do this and we don't, we're going to look like a bunch of turkeys. We don't want to try. There's a really good chance that we're not going to make it. There are ideas, thoughts from social psychologists and ethicists about the nature of human beings and the way we operate. Niebuhr, one of our UCC theologians and ethicists, he said that while human beings individually can be moral, society as a whole is immoral. Henry David Thoreau said that the masses don't rise up to the greatest qualities of the few, but instead fall to the least qualities of the worst people. In other words, we are by nature prepared for dystopia. And when we see all these TV shows and these books, it's not hard to believe that if things were to start to crack and crumble, that we all would crack and crumble too, and that we would become some type of a fallen dystopian society where each person is immoral and out for his or herself. It's not hard to think this way. Brene Brown, the social worker, I believe she teaches at the University of Houston, she was doing a study on why people get given into these patterns of giving up. Not only so much as failing, but not really trying to the best of their ability. That people would get to a certain point and say, this is just too tough. I give up. And so it would give way to addictions, in her example, whether it was drinking or drugs or whatever. And then they make themselves in a way so that they're completely inebriated and they can't think or do anything, almost intentionally. So they have a reason to say, well, I can't do it. I can't even focus right now. And then when they come out of their funk, the pattern starts again, right? Well, maybe I can do this. Oh, no, I can't do that. And it's back to the bottle or back to the drugs or whatever it is. Some pattern of complacency, supposedly based out of fear, perhaps fear of failure or fear of success, we don't know. But Brene said that after doing all of this research, she found something that completely rattled her, something that made her have to go to therapy. She sought out this therapist of therapists. She found out that it wasn't a lack of courage, it wasn't a surplus of fear, but it was a lack of willingness to be vulnerable. There's a difference. Courage, the roots of the word cur means heart, right, in Latin. The age suffix means it's a story, things pieced together. So courage is really a story of your heart, a testament of what you have in your heart to accomplish, usually for others or for yourself. That's courage. But it wasn't that. It was the vulnerability to say, I love you enough to go to the nth degree to succeed for you or on your behalf. It was lack of vulnerability to say, yes, I might fail, I may fall flat on my face and look like an idiot before everybody, but I'm going to do it anyway. It was a lack of vulnerability to say, some may not agree with me, some may not love me, some may not want me to do this, some may not have my back. It takes a lot to be vulnerable. To go to somebody and say, I love you, when you know that they may not say it back. To enter into a relationship that you know may not turn out well in the end. To enter into a covenant with people to help them and serve them, although you may get nothing in return and not get one iota of appreciation. That is vulnerability. That is what Brene Brown realized that society lacked, and that is what it would take to take people out of that endless cycle, right? Heading into complacency and then starting over with false hopes and then back into complacency again and again. But if we all could just be vulnerable. Because Paul says we are one body with many parts. Yes, Thoreau may be right, Niebuhr may be right, that society collapses on top of itself. But if we make the intentional decision that we are going to rise above, that we are going to be greater than the sum of our parts, then society can rise up as individuals and as a whole to do good. To admit that yes, we may fail, but we are willing to be vulnerable for one another. We are willing to realize that these acts are nothing less than sacramental in their value to one another, no matter how tedious or inconsequential they may seem. That we are willing to put ourselves out there and perhaps get hurt very badly in the process, but that we will do so for other people. Because when you put all the parts together, a little bit of me, a little bit of you, a little bit of you, put them all together, and the sum of all of those good parts of us, yes, none of us are perfect. We all screw up. We all have our idiosyncrasies. There are also good parts of us. And if we put them together and make a whole that is strong and vulnerable, and above all, if we dare to be great, dare greatly, while putting ourselves out there, then, through our sacramental acts of kindness and love and compassion, things that we're completely aware of as we head into Martin Luther King Day, then we realize that there is hope for society, and that even a little church like this, with just a few people who are here on this cold day, can dare and do and be great. For the sake not only of ourselves, but for the sacramental love of one another. Amen. So I want to do something different.